here. I want to thank everybody for being here, and especially there was some confusion about the date having a football game, but this was the only time we could get the whole board together, and it was very important that all board members be here because there's certain questions, I think, and individual questions that board members may have regarding this important program. And so we're going to try to do the best we can to get through this. The way we're going to work this today is that we will have the presentation by the high school, and I understand it's going to be a PowerPoint. And then we will open it up for discussion with the board for questions after the presentation. However, if there is some pressing question or something that needs to be immediately addressed during that presentation, if we feel that we need to expand on the explanation or whatever, and it can't wait till the end, we'll allow that. And Maria, you're the one that's going to do that, right? Okay, so just so that we have some idea of where we're going to go today. So discussion only, it's a study session. It's something that we're going to look into more in depth than we have in a long, long time. And so we will open it up with item 2A, presentation at Douglas High School athletic program, and then I'll defer to you, Ms. Samaña.
Okay. The board had asked for us to do an overview, and so that is the intent of tonight's work study session, just to give you an insight as to the whole entire Douglas High School athletics program. Mrs. Trinta and Mrs. Rodriguez and I and Mr. Soto have been working with them to go over some of the touching points that I know that are a matter of interest to the board. And so with that, we also invited some students, because I think students are a big part of our athletics program. And so we're going to end hopefully with our students and sharing some recommendations, some opportunities as the Douglas administration sees it fit for our athletics program. So I know Mrs. Trinta has been working hard, and hopefully we can answer and have a great presentation. And if there's any questions, the board can just ask as she's talking.
Okay, speaking of students, is Nicole going to be here today?
Nicole who?
Nicole Michelle?
No, she wasn't going to, she couldn't.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's up to Melissa as well. All right, I guess with that, you go ahead with that, Maria.
Good evening. Members of the board, Mr. Raybrain, Mrs. Samaniego, Mr. Soto, Mrs. Cox, coaches, SALC members, assistant coaches, and administration, thank you for being here today. Our athletics department is providing equal opportunities for all students, holistic development for our students as well, providing and recognizing athletes contributes to a student overall growth, fostering not only physical fitness, but also mental resilientness. One of our goals is achieving excellence and integrity in our department, motivating and engagement for our students, and our community engagement as well. Some highlights from 2024. We had too many, and these kids worked super hard with their coaches, volunteers, and assistant coaches. These are some of them. You have it in your hands. I'm pretty happy and excited for this season as well. We have some of the coaches as well here that were recognized last year. Ms. Lorena Tapia. That's my second highlights. Those are the students who went to the next level. So we have around 7 students notified the school that they went to college, playing the sports that we're playing at Douglas High School. These are the recognitions we received last year. As you can tell, a lot of students received Player of the Year and Region Offensive and other different categories that were recognized as well, which we are super happy to say that we have more than 8 recognition at the state level. Here are my coaches, Ms. Lorena Tapia again and Mario Romero. Region Coach of the Year, for both of them. Our coaching staff. So we have for cross country Maria Noriega, Mr. Mark Contreras, football Hunter Lund, 4 assistant coaches and 3 volunteers. Golf, Mr. Cañez, and 1 volunteer. Swim, Donna Saville, and 1 volunteer. And for volleyball girls, we have Alonso Tapia, 2 assistant coaches and 2 volunteers. This is for fall. Winter sports, we have basketball boys, Dave Doctor, and we have 2 pending for approval for the winter sports, Alonso Tapia and Robert Hoffman. Basketball girls, we have Clean Hill, and we have 3 assistant coaches and a volunteer. Soccer boys, we have Victor Ramos and 2 assistant coaches. Soccer girls, we have Mario Romero, 1 assistant coach, and 4 assistant coaches volunteers. Wrestling, we have boys and girls. David Gonzalez is the head coach for both. We have 1 assistant coach and 2 volunteers. Spring sports, we have baseball, Fabian Ochoa, head coach. Assistant coaches, we have 2. And volunteers, we have 5. Softball, we have Lorena Tapia as a head coach, 2 assistant coaches, and 5 volunteers. Tennis boys, we have 1 head coach. That's for our boys. I'm sorry, that's a tennis boys and girls have 1 head coach. It says boys in both. I'm sorry. Track boys and girls, Dana Saville. 3 assistant coaches, 1 volunteer, and the activities, which is Spirit Line. We have our new Christine Gibdi. He's the new head coach for Spirit Line, and 1 volunteer. Our coaching staff, including volunteers, are highly qualified for the jobs, and we're happy to say that we are all on the same page and we are moving forward with this. Our volunteers this year are working really hard, hand on hand on off season as well. So we want to recognize that our community members are putting up the work to get our season going. Team and programs that are also in your pamphlet. These are all the teams and the divisions that we are categorized for each sport. As I mentioned before, these are the sports that we offer for each of the seasons. We have varsity and JV for most of our sports, and some of the sports have freshman teams. This is based on student participation, enrollment, and after tryouts, how the teams are looking. Some of the categories only have JV and varsity levels, so if you don't see it in there, it's because it's not offered at this moment as AIA. Activate is the new online platform that we're using for all student athletes. This facilitates the process for eligibility, make contact with parents. In the case that we need to contact them right away on the phone, coaches have access to this. So coaches can see all the documentation. If the kid is not eligible, they are able to see it on their phones. They can contact parents if necessary. They can get all the information they need through this platform. And as for now, we have 370 kids registered as for fall sports. You have also a spreadsheet on the athletic participation for 2023, 2024. These are based on the ratios between girls and boys participation for each of the sports and seasons.
You may want to hold on to that
Can you go
slide a
back
little
there?
bit longer. Yes. Can you say the totals, Mrs. Trinta, of our male and female, and then maybe what you have on the lower bottom?
For our cohort 2024, we have 52 boys, only with, as a general, 52 one-sport athletes, 17 kids who had 2 sport athletes, There are three sport athletes. I know that that was a question that was made before. As far as clearance by athletic office, we have 500 kids as a total for last year. For participation, we had 626. Male participation was 318, and female participation was 308.
Should she go on?
Keep going.
Okay. I'm sorry. Our current participation for fall sports are as follows. Volleyball have 28 girls. Football have 43 boys, and they have 8, as I believe, managers. Golf, 31. This is the highest number we have. Before it was like 10, correct? So we are proudly saying that we have a 31 attendance in the golf course at the moment. Swim and diving have 34, spirit line 28, and cross country 12. Our tryouts and selection for athletes, it's as follows. Score sheet based on student skills and level are used for each sport. Coaches have individual conversations to highlight student athlete strengths and level of skill based on student performance during the week of tryouts. That was a question that was made before. Nothing that is off-season, it's against the kids. It's only during the tryout season, okay? That is a week. If the kid come later in the week, let's say Tuesday, it's at coach's discretion. They can give him the 5 days so they can participate in fully tryouts. A selection of athletes is made taking into consideration the goals of the program and the student performance. The athletics budget for last year was $392,585.52, as is presented. Our equipment, uniforms, and resources allocation for our department, we do a 4-year rotation. So that's for uniforms, but if we see the necessity for getting new uniforms for one of the coaches because they're really bad and we want to look good and represent Douglas High School, we take that into consideration as well.
Mr. President?
Sorry.
That's all right. Mr. President, can I get a quick question in here?
Sure, yeah, if it's pertinent, go ahead.
When we go back to the tryout sheet for the student athletes, I don't know if I had a copy. Is there a sheet that you fill out for that, or?
Each of the coaches have their own. I can provide that to you. We have a copy of each of the sports. The tryout sheets depend on the sport, and the coaches have their own, goals for their sport. So I can provide that for you.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't see if I had
Yeah.
that. Okay, please.
It varies. Yeah. Thank you. Equipment is purchased upon. Are we good?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Good.
Upon coach's request and based on the needs of each individual program, resources allocation are made yearly to each program, and coaches' wish lists are requested at the end of the year. Also, we have a head coaches meeting at the beginning of the season, meaning around July 30-something, maybe 30th or 31. We got that meeting, and we request for those coaches to submit a list if they haven't submitted yet, so we can have everything for their season as well.
I have a question here. That's on the 4-year rotation of the uniforms. Those were all for the varsity teams?
Yes, that's correct.
And those uniforms then are passed down to
Yes, that's correct.
JV and Fresh?
Yes.
Okay.
Do your coaches know how much money they have allocated to them at the beginning of the season?
When we started this year, I just came on board.
I know.
And I'm happy to be here. We started talking about allocations of monies, and that's how it's being presented. As far as donations, we haven't touched that yet. We're working directly with the business office to get those balances in place, but we don't touch that monies anyway.
Okay, and another question about that. Do coaches understand the procurement and about their budgets? And, we talked at our last meeting about tax credit money versus line item money. And a lot of times, people just see or feel like there's just one amount. So do you, or will you be kind of explaining the different?
Yes.
But we call them buckets,
Yes.
different buckets of money.
Yes, we have different buckets of monies, and we are we're in the talks with the business office to get those buckets in place, so I can provide each of the departments or programs their balances. I didn't
love
want it
that.
just to go into the job and get balances that are not accurate, so I'm going as it follows with fall season, and then I go with the flow.
I love that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, we're going to expand on that a little bit
Okay.
when we talk about the allocation and budgets at the end, because I want him involved
Yeah.
with also explaining the auxiliary and the student activity fund. So with that, we'll get to him afterwards. Go
Okay.
ahead, Nadia.
Sounds good. Thank you. Our SALT members. So I'm really proud to have my leadership counseling here with me. Some of them couldn't make it today, but I have some students here. These are my student athletes who represent our student leadership council. So we always say students first, athletics second. We want to make sure that our students are in best behaviors, our students are representing Douglas High School and our community, not only themselves, but their families and our community. And this is,
Come on.
the selection of these students are made based on GPA, student leadership, recommendation by coaches and community members. And we choose 2 representatives of each sport. When we work together, we get some activities for the school. We visit elementaries. These kids are pushing really hard to get those sports going, and they're the leaders who represent Douglas High School.
Okay, my name is Kayla Villaescusa, and I represent girls soccer.
My name is Dominique Munoz, and I represent softball.
So for SALC, we get together and we have meetings about how we can improve our leadership in each of our sports and how we can be better leaders for our team so that we can have better seasons and we can have better connections and we can represent our school better.
We also go to elementary schools to show the other students about our sports and why they should join and the fun of being in high school, athletics.
Any questions for them?
Are they all going to speak, or are they representative of the whole
They're
group?
representing my group.
Let me just quickly ask a question, and I'm really, really glad the students are here. It's all about them anyway. Do you feel that the district provides you with adequate equipment and uniforms and things that you're proud to wear? Do you have any say as to the uniforms, the style, or anything like that? Just in general, if you could react to that question.
I think we do. I really like our uniforms that we have. The certain shirts that we get, our coaches will show us to see if we like them. And we do get to pick on certain shirts and stuff that we wear. We do get a lot of shirts and a lot of things to represent our school when we go out of town.
Do you feel like the equipment that you use is adequate?
Yes.
And the facilities are good?
Yeah, our practice, us on the field, our field is very good to practice on. And then we always have water, and our balls are very good. For all our sports, we all have good equipment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I
Is
have-
there anybody else,
I have
anyone of
one
the students
quick
want to?
question. Are usually the representative of SALC, are they usually the captains of their representative teams, or
Yes,
they
usually.
are? Usually?
Yes.
Okay.
Raise your hand if you're a captain.
Are there any members of SALC that are not captains of whatever the team, their sport they're representing? Okay, so pretty much all of them. All right.
Good, good.
Good. Anybody, before I let the board get involved, do any of the rest of you students want to make any comments about the sports program, the athletic program, anything that you have a concern regarding? And there's not going to be any, you don't have to worry about any retribution or saying, well, I don't want to mention that. But if you feel like there's something really that, and if you feel that the district isn't doing enough for you by way of transportation or anything that's part of the whole program, now would be a good time to say it to this board. Anybody?
So my name is Robert Rodriguez. I'm SALC for golf, but I also play varsity baseball, and I think the district could do a better job of keeping our field nice and pristine, because over the past few years it's been very dead and just a lot of just dead spots with just more sand than actual grass. And that's really my only complaint.
Well, great. I'm glad you mentioned it. I hope Mr. Soto heard that.
Baseball field,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else, while we got you up here, we're going to take advantage of having you here. Do you have anything else, any other student that wants to make any comments regarding anything that you've talked about individually or as a group that says, you know, we need to do this, wish the school would do this?
Hi, my name is Sarib Rodriguez. I'm SALC for tennis, and we don't have lights on our courts. So whenever we have games that are here at home or practices, we have to end early sometimes because we don't have enough light to practice.
Where is the light?
It's
Where?
the tennis
The
courts.
Tennis courts.
On the tennis courts?
Yes, and we
How
believe
about the
we've heard from.
surface of the tennis courts?
Okay.
The surface of the tennis court, they're old, but they're not too bad. For the girls' courts, they are a bit worse. There's a lot of spots that they have holes, they're not complete.
Yeah, while you're up there, you're talking about lights, let me just quickly ask you a question. When you people get home from out of town, it's generally early in the morning, right? Or late at night, right? Do they drop you off close to your homes, or do they take you to a central point, like back to the gym or wherever?
Usually back to the gym.
Back to the gym. Do you have any concerns about the lighting there at all at night when especially the girls? Do you girls feel like you're safe there with the lights? There's enough light to do whatever you need to do? Okay.
And
All
do
right,
your
thank-
coaches wait with you for your parents if
Yes.
they're not there?
Yeah.
Great, great.
Mitch, do you have any questions? Mr. Ramos?
No, just on the, when you're waiting there for your parents, is there one of your coaches stays there until you're all gone, or? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I wanted to make sure.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention while you're here? The athletic program? Sure, absolutely. Get up there.
Hi, my name is Alejandro Reyan. For the boys soccer, and my only complaint is that for preseason we have to wait a long time because of football, so we don't have another field to practice and get ready, and get used to the freshmen. So we like somewhere to practice.
That's a good point, and I think that goes hand in hand with the problem we're having at the new construction.
Construction.
You're all aware that there's another practice field up there, right? The one that looks horrible, and
The
that's not
sand
our
field.
fault. I want you to know
No.
that's not the district's fault because it's still under the warranty of the contractor, and the district can't get in there and do anything. So that's a good point, and Mr. Soto's listening to everything you have to say regarding all that. Anything else? Anybody
I
else
have a
wants
question
to
for you.
add?
Mrs. Soto.
Approximately what time do you usually get to start soccer?
We usually start at the ends of October, but we would like to try it starting this month, but we don't have a field to try
You
it.
mean like open field?
Yeah, it's to
Okay.
get other players, because we have a lot of new players, a lot of freshmen, and they don't know anything yet. So we like to start training.
I get it.
Other members of the board, any questions for the students?
Oh, a question for, don't we have any field that could be managed over with Paul Huber?
Yeah.
Reconditioned for the practice?
Practices.
We've been talking about that for quite some time, and it's challenging, especially because, as you know, a soccer field has to be facing south-north. we have the space going east-west, but, I mean, we're trying to find a way on how to, make it fit in there. Especially because, again, we have middle school sports, and soccer is a sport, and they've been playing, they have to borrow A Street park fields or the airport park and things like that. So we're looking into potentially doing something there at Huber, behind Huber, for a soccer field.
Members of the board, any other comments, questions of these kids? You know,
The soccer coach is here, maybe.
If,
I don't know where he
well,
practices
we don't
at.
want to get into
Yes,
that kind of
no.
discussion. Let's take it, and this is a good touch having you here. It really is. It's what you might say very propitious for the board to be able to talk directly to you about certain things. There's, there's going to be some things come up in the district regarding some issues that are going to be a big interest to you. And it has to do with athletics, of course, because you carry them, and that's the reason I'm going to be able to work it in here. That when you travel, you carry your cell phones with you. And I'm sure a lot of you, when you get home, you call your parents or whatever, you call whoever you need to, or they call you to make sure you're back all right, and so forth. But the board is going to be discussing in the near future, I think the superintendent's going to bring it to the board, the issue of cell phones at the high school, or I think specifically the high school at this point. So I just want you to know that we're not going to get into a big discussion about it now, but for you as leaders and athletes, and I'm sure all of you are looked up to by your peers up at the school, talk to them about what they think about, this board may consider banning cell phones in the schools, period, just banning them. And is it part of athletics? And she knows I'm going to try to make this a stretch, but yes, it is, because you use them at practice and you call your parents and so on. But it's something that we're going to ask you to consider and start talking along those lines at the school about what you would think if the board were to consider banning cell phones at the school. I mean, completely doing away with them. So that would be something that lets you in on that now, to be talking about it, because it's better to do that than to drop it all of a sudden on you and say, oh, did you know that the school board's discussing we're not going to be able to use cell phones anymore? So anyway, something for you to be thinking about. Members of the board, go ahead.
And along with that, segueing with that, do some research. Nationwide, schools are banning cell phones. This isn't just a Douglas idea. This is all across the United States.
Yeah, and the state legislature had a bill last year that was going to be a law for all of the Arizona schools to ban them, just so you know. And that meant that it was the law, that the school district had no say-so, because if it became a state law, then everybody had to adhere to it. But the bill went, if you understand this, and I'm sure you do, I'm sure you've got good government classes up there, the bill went to the governor, and she vetoed it, which meant that had she not vetoed it, it would be in effect today that you couldn't have cell phones at the high school. So, but the district still could, in their own discretion, the district could still do it if we want to, okay? So anyway, anything else that you want to add? I just wanted to share that with you so you can get that discussion going, all right? Not to do it in a fright or to be upset about it, but kind of, discuss it. So, members of the board, anything else while we take advantage of them being here?
I would just, on that issue there, talk to with all of you, get together and talk to why is it going nationwide that they want to ban the cell phones? And do some research. It's on the news, it's coming up and everything, and find out why they want to ban them. There's a reason. And so when you come back and you feel that it is to your best interest to have a cell phone, you gotta explain to us why you need a cell phone in the classroom.
Okay, thanks a lot. Is there anything else anybody wants to add, any of the students? You sure? We're not going to talk about cell
Yes,
phones
okay,
anymore
Mark.
because I stretched it a little
The
bit.
look on some of your
interjecting
faces
that
are
there.
like, I really appreciate that you came and that you gave your time and you spoke to us. I think that's tremendous.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, pull the mic down a little bit.
Sorry.
Identify yourself then.
Hi, I'm Haley Barco. I'm representing girls volleyball. And all of our athletes here not only work hard on the field or nor the court, or the track, but they also work hard in weight room. And I'm glad that we do have a really good weight room. But one thing I want to address is there's no equipment for running. There's only one treadmill, and in a class there's like 18 of us, and we're not all able to do a running like session. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
So more treadmills.
Yeah.
More treadmills, okay.
Yeah, anybody else?
My name is Sofia Castillo, and I represent girls soccer. And I wouldn't like to talk anything bad about it, but I would also like to bring up what a good idea was for our school to implement an athletic office. It's where, we go, we pay our dues, and, it's not like the athletic director or the secretary working. She also has not only SOC members, but also other senior student athletes working. So it also gives us on-the-job experience, which I think was a really good idea. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Nice.
and then one quick comment. Thank you very much for that. Well, this board is looking to have a bond election, which means we're going to ask the voters in the near future to build a new gymnasium. And I want you to be thinking about that. And if we do put it on a very near, hopefully, election, then we want to make sure that you guys are helping us and you're in sync with it. But this board feels, after looking at that for many, many years, that gym is antiquated, it's old, it's really, really not a good environment. So we really want you to be thinking about that as well, all right? All right, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
So, my name is Robert Rodriguez, but for baseball, we do like to practice in the off-season, and we already have started. But as the year comes to an end, it starts to get darker sooner, and they do not allow us to use lights. So we have to end our practices around 5:36, because that's when the sun goes down, so we really don't have enough time to really get in the work to get better for the next season. So I really thought that should be brought up, that we need lights.
So if I may answer that, we did have an arrangement, and I know that's an issue. Anytime you see board, the lights cost a lot of money to run, but we have an arrangement with, and Mrs. Trinta now knows as the new AD, that anytime during off-season that your coaches feel they need, to practice in the evening, especially in the summertime because it's so hot, all they need to do is request it through Mr. Soto or myself, and it gets approved. And in case any community member calls us and says, why is the baseball field on? Well, because it was authorized for your practice. So that's the arrangement we have.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Robert, for bringing that up so that they could clarify that too, so that you guys know now. Anybody else? Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
being. Did
And
you
I
have
will
something?
say-
Did you have something you want to say? Well, you leaned into it. I thought. You leaned into that mic. I thought you were getting ready to say something. All right.
I
Thank you
will
so much for being
say
here.
one more thing before you leave. Hats off to our Douglas High School students and our Douglas High School athletes. When you all go out and represent Douglas, at your numerous events, numerous competitions, it's always a very great feeling as an educator, as a community member, as a superintendent, as an AD, as a board, to hear how well-behaved our athletes, how respectful they are when you're competing against other bigger cities. So when you go out there, know that whether you're eating at McDonald's, you're at Walmart, or you're in Tucson, and wearing that Douglas Unified or Douglas DHS Bulldog shirt, you're representing your high school in your town. So hats off to you, because we always hear great things about our teams.
Members of the board, one last shot?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you.
I'm proud of you.
Go ahead, Maria, and continue.
That was the last part of my presentation. Any questions for me?
I thought you were
Ms.
going to have
Trinta,
some
do-
recommendations.
Recommendations and opportunities.
We'll let you completely finish your report, and then we'll turn it over to the board and just,
Okay.
for anything that might come up.
As they mentioned, some of our challenges are finding qualified coaches in our small community, volunteers for our sports, for an extra hand in those practices. Sometimes we have more than 40 kids out there, and it's hard to get only one coach to supervise. It's important to supervise and the safety of our kids. Student interest in some of the sports, coaching salaries. That's one of the questions that is being always brought to my attention. And lack of feeder programs. Our small community have little or no. Many of the programs are not feeded in the middle school, so we're struggling to get more kids' interest in the freshman years. Some opportunities that we see for athletics programs is continue with athletic scholarships, promoting that for them, developing athletics leaders as we are with SALC, student parent coach relationships, growing and improving athletics programs, new interest in sports that our kids have brought to our attention, men's volleyball, flag football, girls golf, recognition of coaches and their programs as they are working super hard, and you see how much they bring and pride that they have for our sports, and our booster clubs. Some of the recommendations that we are presenting are start working with something for the training room. We really want to make sure that our kids are safe and sound. EMT aid to monitor and provide first aid for our students athletes during season and off season. Increase entrance fee, adults for $4 from $4 to $7, and students from $2 to $4. That will get a little bit more to the athletics department so we can provide more for the kids. And increase coaches' salaries. That's something that was mentioned before.
I'll start with you, Mr. Smith, while she's up there. Do you have any questions about anything that was presented?
Quite a few.
Go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Okay, well, let's kind of start with some of the programs and the coaches, assistant coaches, so forth. Assistant coaches are paid positions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I had a page earmarked here, if I can find it. Well, here, okay, here we go. Okay, so for an example, let's say with football.
Yes.
One head coach, we have 4 assistant coaches. Have you any idea of how the breakdown on those assistant coaches are?
I do have that information.
Okay.
So each of the assistant coaches have responsibility, and as you mentioned, football, it's a big sport, and it have different, areas that the kids need to work on, and I have the breakdown for you. I was prepared for that.
I can easily see you have an offensive, a defensive, a
Yes.
special teams,
Yes.
assistant coach.
Oh, he left.
Where would the
We
fourth
have it
one
going
go?
today. I'm sorry.
Do you have another question, Mr. Smith? While she's getting.
Well,
Yeah.
and it was kind of the same thing for, I'd heard that it was mentioned that we don't have a freshman girls basketball.
That's correct.
And that's correct. Now, for how long has it been since we have not had? 2 years. And so how many does it take to make the team?
Kids to come and perform.
But how many? How many kids do you need to apply? For 30, you
Come
need
on up,
30
Clint,
freshmen
if you
to
don't
be
mind,
able
come
to
on
make
up,
the
because-
team?
so we can hear you better.
Probably 30 kids, 10 for each team.
Okay,
For a level team.
okay.
varsity.
So you have 30 for freshman, or for sophomore, junior, or at least 30 for each one of those.
Right, and
Uh,
now the freshman teams are freshman, sophomore teams.
A
And it's
combination
all
of
over
them?
the state, it's not just here.
Right.
They go
Okay,
a lot
but-
of places and.
So you have a head coach, and one for,
JV coach and then freshman coach.
but you don't have a freshman team, but you still have a
No.
freshman coach.
Right,
For how long? For 2 years that you haven't?
yeah.
Okay. Any idea why? Is there something else that they're doing?
No, we just don't, actually, I've been coaching since '88, in the basketball program. And we used to have 60, 65 kids. The last few years, they're not coming out. Like Ms. Trinta said, there's no basketball feeder program besides the junior high. They play for 1 month, and the kids just don't come out.
Who decides how to collapse a team?
Huh?
How is the collapsing and the official decision to collapse
Well,
a
we try to,
team?
well, 1 year we try to, it depends on how many freshmen we have, actually.
You want to help him out, Melissa?
Yes, so
Yeah,
Melissa
come on
probably
up.
has a little bit better knowledge
Yeah.
on like the whole process of any sport and maybe deciding that there is not a
Thank you.
one level.
So I'm not just talking about basketball. I kind of want to give a general overview because it's not the only sport. So we offer these sports, right? It's not that we don't have it. We offer freshman level basketball for boys and girls, and obviously JV and varsity as well. So as Mr. Hill was explaining, general rule of thumb, you want to have at least 10 girls per team. So he needs at least 30 girls to fully equip 3 teams. Now, but keep in mind, if you're having a freshman team, only freshmen can play. So if he only has 4 freshman girls, then we don't have enough girls for a team. Therefore, he can only fill a JV team. Okay, now going to the question about the coaches, is that the program has a head coach and 2 assistants. Okay, it's not a head coach for varsity, a head coach for JV, and a head coach for freshmen. That's not what it is. It's an entire program. He's the head coach for the program, and under him he has 2 assistants to help wherever he feels it's in the best interest of the program to help develop these girls and build those skills for them to be successful. So I wanted to clarify that it's not a freshman coach, it's an assistant coach of the program.
Okay.
Okay.
I know that there's really not, or I've heard, and actually I read, I went to the AIA website and looked it up. There's really kind of not a freshman team, or the quote freshman. There's like JV1 and JV2. Is that how it's aligned?
So yeah, so just like Mr. Hill was saying, it's not a Douglas High School issue. It's an issue across the state. A lot of the freshman teams are non-existent now. So they're going with a JVA and
Oh,
a
that's
JVB.
Okay.
So I can use our softball team as an example. They've implemented a JVA and a JVB at times. Our baseball team has implemented a JVA and a JVB. So the same thing would be applied for the basketball team, but for that specific sport, the participation is an issue. There's not enough girls to have 3 teams at the moment. And a lot of times, we don't know that until tryouts, until we know how many girls are actually out there trying out for the sport. So we can't say, we offer it, we offer the freshman level, but we won't know until tryouts or until they've been cleared by the athletic office whether or not we would actually be able to fill a team.
I know that I've been very concerned for years that we didn't have a feeder program, even before I came on this board. It shows. It does. It shows in skills. It shows in numbers. It's just like,
Sorry, Mr. Hill.
we cannot compete.
Yes.
This is my opinion.
Go ahead. I
It
want to
is-
get back to Mr. Smith's question,
I'm
got
sorry.
lost in the shuffle.
Well, actually, that was one of them too. I was
Okay, go
wondering,
ahead.
and I don't know if it's more of Mr. Soto or Ms. Rodriguez, are there any plans to try and expand the athletics into the middle schools and
Can
junior
we,
schools or something like
before, that way we'll get completely off the subject as we're trying to direct it specifically to the coaches. And once we get
So-
past that, then we'll come to that. Is that all right with you, Jana?
That's fine. I'm
So
All
sorry.
right, but
Just a
Melissa, let me
quick-
ask you
I
about
get
those
excited.
coaches. Because I've seen it over the years. And you said that you determine let's say a team by 10 girls for 10 varsity, 10 sophomores, or you can have both juniors and whoever on the JV, but that they have to be freshmen to play freshmen, right?
Correct.
So if you don't have 10 freshmen, and you have determined that you needed 3 coaches, how can you justify keeping that third coach as an assistant when you don't have a freshman program?
So remember, it's a program. So just like Mr. Smith was talking about football, right? You have your defensive coordinator, your offensive coordinator, your coach in charge of the quarterback. So any other sport, it works the same way. So you have the head coach, and then every head coach determines how they utilize their assistants. So in this case, you can have a defensive coach, an offensive coach. You can have a coach that works with all your shooters. You can have a coach that works with your big kids that are down in the paint. So it's not about the level. It's about developing the skills necessary for every aspect of the game. So like I said before, they're his 2 assistants, and if you go to the games, they are both with them on that bench. And they're providing him feedback, the same for any, not just basketball. Your assistants are there as your assistants, as your extra pair of eyes. What are they seeing that I'm not seeing? So those 2 assistants are very, very valuable to any program, or some programs have more than 2 assistants, but to provide that additional set of eyes, or that additional set of skills that maybe Mr. Hill doesn't have. You know, everybody has strengths, and that's why it's very important to be very selective on who you choose as your assistants, because then they will help the overall program, not just one level.
Mr. Hill doesn't need another set of eyes. He's been very successful all these years. But let's go back to you, Mr. Smith. They were getting that information from you. I don't want to let that fall by the wayside.
So, yes, and we did, which, again, it kind of goes back to the same area where it was talking about with the assistive coaches, and they are broken down by responsibilities. But an example is they have an offensive coordinator and an O-line coordinator. Offensive and offensive line, there's basically 2 guys doing the same job. So my question is, are there in any of these places where obviously the coach is extremely, important, but the number of assistant coaches can be replaced, and if nothing else, replaced with some of the volunteer coaches?
Our volunteers doesn't get paid, so we cannot just solely make them responsible.
I know they don't
of
get
each
paid,
of-
but they still have skills.
Yeah, but we are not relying on the volunteers. Volunteers and for safety, for making sure that our kids are all moving forward with their skills. They're not there to provide fully strength and preparation on the kids, but they're an extra support that we are getting, and they're not every single day in there.
Alejandra, were you getting some information together for Mr. Smith?
That's
when
what
we
he shared
when we
right now.
deviated?
She handed-
That was
handed-
that? Okay,
handed
good,
that.
good. All right, go
So
ahead,
just
Melissa.
like Ms.
Follow.
Rita said, the volunteers obviously are there on their own accord. They help when they're available. They're not necessarily there every day. And another thing that we need to remember is that a lot of these volunteers have jobs, and sometimes they're not available to travel with the sports teams. So if we don't have these paid assistants, then sometimes the head coach would have to travel by themselves to a game, if they had a game in Tucson or wherever it is, because like we said, the volunteers are not always available to travel or be available every day at the practice, because remember, they're there as a volunteer. They're not paid. They're not bound by anything. They're there to help and support when they have the opportunity to do so.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Smith?
I guess, let's see.
We can
I'd
always
ask-
come back if you think of
No,
anything.
the last thing, I guess, and I'm not sure who this one would be more directed to, are there any, and this is for all of the sports, not any one in particular, are there any guidelines or anything on how the coaches go through picking like their team captains and that kind of stuff?
Yes. Lorena, do you want to join me? She's one of my, Donna?
Yeah.
I will have my coaches answer your question.
Okay.
That's
He was,
two-
he was a captain.
There's two
He
Hall
was
of
a
Famers
captain
there.
in senior year. How were you picked?
There's two Hall of Famers there, right there.
My age or
No,
How did you become a captain?
We voted on it.
What year was that, sir? 19 what?
How would I choose a captain? I'd
No,
let-
no, 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 no. You were the captain of your basketball team.
I sure was. How did you know that?
I know a lot of things, sir.
Did you go through the state archives to find that?
Number what, 32?
You get embarrassed.
I can tell you what I like to do.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really choose a captain. I let all the girls participate, and like when they meet at mid-court, they rotate. Last year we didn't do that, but this year I've done it for years, and it seems to work. Everybody takes a leadership role. I do select the kids for the leadership program.
For the SALC.
Yeah, and it's usually, A students, top students.
Sure.
I like to have I select a senior and a junior. That way the junior has a year to learn from the senior, and then just rotate it that way.
I was his assistant coach for years too. And he was mine too. Kind of went back and forth. And we kept that system in basketball because it was important for everybody to feel that leadership. Because they need to know what that feels like when you're on the floor playing and helping direct while you're on there. Because when you're not a leader and you're, like on the other side, you're just too critical of the other people. And I actually got that from him. And for swimming, it's who steps up. And
Okay.
usually it's the seniors who step up and they become the leaders.
And are grades usually considered in deciding on which ones are captains?
They're
or
not called captains.
They're not
Just
called
leaders.
captains? Okay, leaders.
I don't have MVPs, I don't have MVPs, and I don't have captains,
Okay.
because everybody's an MVP.
Do you do that with track?
Absolutely,
Nice.
absolutely.
Okay,
Lorena?
did that answer that question, Mr.
Lorena,
Smith?
Lorena has her
Oh.
softball.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was a standard thing. Go ahead. Go ahead, Lorena. I'm not going to cut you off.
It's similar. We usually do all seniors, but now that the SELC program came in, we do have our two SELC leaders, but they're not necessarily the team captains. They might be, but what we do in softball, when we do visit our mound with the umpires, there's the two SELC, and they choose another senior to go up with them. We stay with the seniors because they have a little bit more experience and they lead the underclassmen. And I do believe that the underclassmen follow and our seniors lead by example. And, it's a way of showing the underclassmen, okay, I want to be like this. They're good leaders and I want to take that role when I'm a senior. So that's what we do.
And we have a mix, so we have a mix right now.
Mix. Okay. Answers my question.
Okay, and
Thank
just
you.
quickly, Clint, when, for instance, at a basketball game, before the game starts and they get the referees and they ask for the captains, right?
Captains, yeah.
But you call them leaders, right?
I
And so you just send the leaders out there.
I rotate the girls up there.
into
Okay,
that-
great.
into
Okay,
that position.
Mr. Smith, is that
That,
it?
and, yep.
All right,
Been
how about
answered.
you, Jana?
No, that's, I have questions.
For your stuff, yeah, for your questions.
Do we just want to, did you finish all your?
I'm done.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had questions about, I think, the budget, and I didn't cut you
I've
off.
got
but
my book here, I'm sorry. And don't worry, I'll go easy. I really liked your handbook. And is this for both coaches and players, or do coaches have a separate book than players?
So as for now, when I walked into the job, it was created already, but I'm in the job with Ms. Melissa Rodriguez to get it separately. I think it's important to just separate that information so we don't have to be, miscommunicating maybe the community.
And there's a lot here.
Yes.
And most people get through the fifth page and then they stop reading it.
Yes.
And I know that when Mr. Walker was and I hate to bring up a name of somebody who's not here anymore, he had a handbook for students and a handbook for coaches. And players, mothers or fathers or legal guardians had to come in and sign
Yes.
after a meeting for that. Will there be a signature by
We
the
still-
parent, or do they already do that?
We
Oh,
do
perfect.
parent meetings before the season starts, so I assign dates for them to meet with me. We have conversations for the bylaws, which are the expectations for our coaches and their teams. And then I go over expectations for the school, student handbook, and everything is signed at that moment. At Ray Brain, we used to do as well, separate handbooks. So that's the route that we're taking.
Great. I really appreciate getting this. I know that there were years when I really struggled in trying to find who was playing on what night. Even going to the website, I don't like the website a
Yeah.
whole lot in trying to find. I was having to go to the AIA website to find out what our schedules were. So I'm so excited to see this, and I know that you'll be doing a really good job with that too.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have, go through my list here. You've done a really great job in getting, okay, equipment. Now, I know that the district buys certain equipment, like we buy football helmets and we buy uniforms. What happens though about the personal items like shoes or cleats?
That is personal, and the parents provide that.
What do we do if they can't afford it?
Our coaches, some of our community members donate stuff for our coaches, so our coaches are able to provide, and I'm really thankful for that as well.
So those community donations are extremely important?
Yes, they are.
Okay, all right. This next one's kind of,
Back in the day, Ortega's shoes used to come out to every practice and donate shoes to every program. But that, unfortunately, that's where we stand. We still have some of those shoes still. But that's how that went away.
And I know our Spirit Line, they have a really good booster club. This also is part of our community members who step up to do their job. They fundraise, and some of the kids doesn't have the funds, and they provide for them as well.
excellent.
Our booster club sometimes will donate them.
Okay, I have a concern about that. Student behavior.
Yes.
Okay, and in our handbook, it talks about competitions and all, but what about at practice? If we have a student who mouths off to a coach or to a volunteer, who handles that? Does the coach
Our
handle it
head
and
coaches.
then you?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. If it gets out of hands, and our coaches are really good communicating those concerns with me, I have those one-on-one conversations with them. If I need the parents, as that says in the student handbook, I have those conversations with parents and students as well.
And what about parent disagreements with coaching? Does that go automatically to you?
Yes.
And do you bring the coach in to
When that
be part of
happens,
that conversation?
when that happens, it hadn't happened yet, please.
I know.
That conversation, I refer them back to the coaches. I want them to communicate to the coaches first. And after that, if the resolution is not what they wanted, I schedule a meeting. I don't have meetings without the coaches in presence, so they can defend themselves.
Excellent, excellent. I really like that idea. A lot of times, people kind of cut out the coach.
No.
And then it becomes between administrative and parent, and then the coach is just over here,
Yeah.
wondering what happened, or, oh, yes. Let's see, the athletic director, the athletic director evaluation, do you receive a separate evaluation from your vice principalship evaluation, or is it all lumped together? Melissa?
That will be Melissa. I haven't got my evaluation yet.
I know. Well, you know what? We see about, and we hear about the teacher evaluations, but we seldom hear anything about admin administration evaluation. So I kind of would like to know that.
Just so you know, I have two assistant principals, one that is in charge of athletics and the other one that's in charge of CTE. So they only get one evaluation, but when I do the evaluation, I consider both parts of the job. So as I'm scoring them and giving them feedback, it's based both on their performance as an athletic director and also their performance as an assistant principal.
Okay, thank you. And that's got to be a lot. A lot of observation, documentation, paperwork. Thank you. And
Well, they're very lucky that I love athletics, so I'm right in there with them, observing along the way all the time. So,
And my last question is, study halls. We used to have, I hate to say study halls, but after-school study programs for our students who are often or sometimes ineligible. Do we have that anymore?
So we have a 7:30 to 8:10 and a 3:10 to 3:30 tutorial program. So our teachers provide that tutorial, and our coaches, many of our coaches are teachers, so they also provide that support as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
You done? Are you done?
I may think of something else later, but I'll bring it back at the end.
So I want to bring to your attention as well that we have a sleep. If the kid is not eligible, they need to attend tutorial. There's not an option.
Oh,
So
nice.
all the coaches know that, and they have their own program system that they follow to make sure that the teachers sign that the kids attended the tutorial as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to call Mr.
did a
Soto
nice job.
to
Sounds
give a
good.
brief explanation about the difference between, because it was brought up about keeping shoes and things like that. Talk about the auxiliary fund and talk about the student activity and talk about the tax exemption and district donations.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Quickly, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So yeah, as we were talking about the budget, so you have a better understanding of the resources that athletics have. So they receive an allocation from the M&O side of it, which covers for the stipends, the attendance for the coaches, of course, and some supplies and capital items. This year, athletics is going to get allocated $180,000 out of the M&O budget just for supplies and capital and different things, pay refs and things like that. The addenda part of it is closely $170,000. So overall, we're talking about $350,000 roughly coming out of the M&O portion of the district's budget. Auxiliary, as Ms. Trinta explained, comes from entry fees and many other activities that, but auxiliary funds are considered district funds also. We have to treat them as district funds. The student activities is the fundraisers and the things that the kids do and earn that money, and in order for them to spend it, they have to vote and come to an agreement and say, we're gonna purchase this, and they vote for that and they purchase those things. Gift and donations, and you all know, those are unrestricted. I can come and just donate I can be very specific and say, I'm gonna donate to cross-country this much. But then we also have tax credits. Now, the difference between, again, with the tax credits, it gives you more benefit when you do your taxes, obviously, than just the regular gift and donations. So most taxpayers opt to do that, but there's a lot of restrictions in spending that money. There's a form that the business office have to follow, and if it's considered tax credits, then we can make that expenditure. There's a few of things that we have to follow in order to spend that money. So it's very rare, I'm gonna say that we spend those monies, because it's really hard. But this year, as Ms. Trinta said, that she's waiting on balances, we're gonna provide those amounts and how they can spend those to start using them. You know, I'm not saying that there's a lot of money in there. I wish we had more tax credits, but the issue with that is the difficulty of spending those monies. Specific questions in terms of that?
So at the end of the year, do the tax credit money, if it's not spent, does it roll over to the following
Correct,
year?
yes,
What about the auxiliary?
also, yes.
So if a coach had maybe $300 left, they're gonna start out that year with that extra
Yes.
$300?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. The MNO one is the only one that
To
changes
clarify
depending.
also the question Ms. Salchow had recently regarding the tax exempt money, that you had been recently told by the auditors that it couldn't be spent on capital or it couldn't be spent on equipment. However, you just recently found out that it can be. So, but the determination of how it's spent, it starts with the need of the coach. Tell the
Right.
board about that, especially Ms. Salchow.
Right, one of the clarifications on that capital, it can be, you can purchase equipment or uniforms, but only to the varsity level.
Right.
That's the main restriction there. And it can, again, it's an amount of money that the coaches have, and if they can spend it, that way, they can utilize those. Tax credits are also just for easy or terms is for extracurricular activities, but can also pay for entry fees. We can use for that, and I believe for lodging, but I'll double check on that. But like I said, there's not a lot of things that they can use those money for, but I want them to have a balance and say, this is how much money we have for every specific sport. Again, as a taxpayer, I can designate what specific sport I want that allocated to, or I can just say it's for athletics in general, and then it's gonna be up to the athletic director and the principal to spend those monies.
And then the equipment that's bought with student activities, explain to Ms. Salchow and the board, that is the only one that can be kept by the athlete.
But the athletes, again,
Get into that.
with the MNO and the auxiliary, these are district funds, and whatever is purchased with that is property of the district. Students cannot keep any of those shirts or equipment, but if the money comes from student activities or booster club, then, they can keep those items.
I know that I've spoken with coaches recently and in the past, and I've heard them say over and over again that they've never known how much money they had in their budget. They would go to the athletic director, and the athletic director would listen to what they needed, and then would either decide to order or not. And most times the athletic director ordered, but I think that, and I hate to use the word transparency, but that information is good for them. That's ownership, and I mean, it's not theirs, but it makes them feel like they're part of the process.
Right.
And not like children whose allowance is a mystery.
Mhm. And it's a little hard, just not as a justification, but the auxiliary and the student activities portion of our system in the business office is a different module. I don't want to get too technical, but it's not available, as just run a report. We're working on that. Hopefully, the software can help us out with that, but can be done. If you let us know, that's what I'm saying. We're trying to get all those balances right now so they have them. And then as they utilize them, then we'll keep tabs on it and keep, bringing those balances whenever they're requested. But it's a process, but.
Any board member regarding expenditures regarding athletics, M&O, student activity, or auxiliary, Mr. Smith?
I guess part of, one of the questions I have when it comes to resource allocation, and I don't know if it would be, this may be more Ms. Trenta's, whenever a coach comes to them and say they're wanting to, just for an example, let's say increase funds for putting in for out-of-city, either tournaments or games, travel type stuff. How is that, if it's going to be an increase, who makes the decision on whether it would, because obviously you're going to, if you increase in one place, you're going to have to decrease someplace else. Who makes those decisions?
I have my general athletics, which I can allocate the monies for each sport. And if they have a tournament to assist, I provide those supports and the logistics as well, but I do not do any meals. So
But
the
if
parents
they're-
are the
If
ones.
they're wanting to increase, say, the number of tournaments they're wanting to attend, and they may be further away, and let me be a little bit
Yeah.
more of this, because this is the one little part that I am a little bit familiar with the wrestling, with the girls' teams.
Okay.
It's only come up within the last 2 or 3 years. Before it was a combined, now it's being split out. A lot of times the girls with the ones local are not getting the opportunities to wrestle as much, where a lot of the tournaments and stuff that they would normally go to are all the way up in Phoenix. So obviously it's going to be an increase in travel monies.
We have I can use volleyball as an example and softball. They have participated in Phoenix tournaments, and that hasn't been a problem before. So
Okay.
I think the allocations is decided by us as far as using the monies in an appropriate way where we can provide each program, because we only have 16 programs and we have one
Right.
bucket of monies we can
I
use for
understand
that.
that.
So we need to be fair to every sport. So we want to provide equal opportunities for everybody, and to provide that, I need to make sure that I also make our coaches understand that I need to provide each sport an opportunity as well.
Okay, and I guess one of the things is, because I know, like with the girls wrestling, they had a phenomenal number of them went to state last year. Starting to get more and more doing there, and I'm hoping that the opportunities will continue. I know
Yes.
one of the biggest problems was trying to find places for them to go wrestle.
Yeah, and I'm open to listen to any coaches who have any, ideas for the departments on sports, so.
Before you say anything, Alejandro, were you going to clarify something regarding that question that and we'll get to you right after that, okay?
I would just say mainly to describe the tournaments. Let's say, like, for example, that I have baseball, softball. We usually do provide 2 invitationals with 1 lodging. But when it comes to individual sports like swim, track, wrestling, track, if I'm forgetting one, I'm sorry, we do allow them up to 5. So it depends on the communication with the coach and the AD. But yes, It is different, like you said. But because they need the experience because of the points and all that stuff with AIA.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
David Gonzalez, I'm the head wrestling coach. So one of the things that changed as of last year with AIA and with wrestling is before the females were allowed to participate against males in every tournament. AIA changed the rules last year. I don't know, there was a couple girls, one out of Phoenix, one out of Tucson, that petitioned against the AIA to allow them to wrestle in men's brackets. And they did, they were wildly successful. But to get to the point of now that we're separating the two from boys and girls wrestling, it is going to bear an issue with tournaments and even the possibility of expanding coaching staff to that end, because then we would possibly looking at a need for either an additional assistant coach or a specifically one designated to the ladies, which would increase then seeking opportunity for them in tournaments as well. So as the sport grows, because I don't know if anybody's aware, but female wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the nation right now. And with the spotlight on it, especially through the Olympics and some of these young ladies coming through, just again, I think of the one just came out of Sunnyside. She's phenomenal, but it's going to increase, and so with that, we're going to need more help, and we are going to have to look at expanding the wrestling program itself with that.
Okay, Donna, there was something else you wanted to add?
So I have the individual sports, just so happen to have both. So for track and for swimming, to qualify for state, we have to go to the invites. So that's the only place we can qualify, is at those invites. So that's why we have more. And sometimes we have to travel to Phoenix. But when we do go to Phoenix, it is the elite that go. So, and when we go to Tucson, I try to bring as many so they get the experience.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions for Ms. Trenta.
Yes.
Have we had, or do you expect to have, any problems getting officials for this year?
As at the moment, we have all officials already assigned to each of the sports, so as far as I know, everything is going to be rolling smooth.
Because that's what I've been hearing, is that the other schools are having problems getting the officials, and then they might have to cancel games. It's a whole thing.
So that was
But we're not
discussed at
having
the,
that trouble.
no, that was discussed with AIA at the beginning of my journey with athletics. We changed games to make sure that we have the officials and everything is ready and scheduled.
Oh, wonderful. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the presentation that we have tonight. A lot of information. I thank you for that. When I was in high school, I played JV basketball. Hard to believe because I'm not tall. But there were 8 of us on the team, and we had a real good season. Why is the number 30?
I think that's a choice that right now we're doing as coaches. Eligibility, kids get hurt, maybe kid drop from the team. There's too many factors that I cannot control, and I'm pretty sure that our coaches are looking for the best for the program, and I'm believing that what is their judgment is the best for our school athletics right now.
Well, I'm sure that's true, and I appreciate all the coaches and all the time they've always put in. I just don't want to have any kids disappointed. If you've got 8 kids that really want to play, they should have a team.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, I understand.
The last thing I wanted to mention is that you mentioned raising the rates for, I remember when we had students free. And I would like to go back to that, maybe $1. But if you want the students to come and attend the functions, I think that's the best way to go. So there's my opinion again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramos.
Yes, as everyone has said, we really appreciate this presentation here with all the information. And I would like to see yourself or your coaches find out what can be done to get the students middle school, or maybe even going as far as going to elementary and starting getting them involved into wanting to be in sports. Because there's a decline that is nationwide, students being involved in sports. So what can we do to get the kids motivated again to go into sports?
So as for now, our coaches are, with their booster clubs, they're doing camps. And I think that's been a really good success for our community. For example, volleyball this summer, they have a little bit more than 100 kids in the gym.
Good evening. I'm Alonso Tapia. I'm the head coach for volleyball. So for my 3rd season now, we've been doing a kid camp. The first kid camp ever we did was about 40 students from elementary to middle school. This past summer, we had over 100 campers. So, let me breathe a little bit, sorry. The biggest thing is, to answer your question, although there's no feeder programs, me personally, I've made my girls go out into the community and do this kid camp so it builds that love. So that way we are reaching out to the elementaries, we are reaching out to the middle schools, and it's somewhat a feeder, but still, it's not enough. So, but yes, kid camps are one way that we've been successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
And that is with boys basketball. They have done it for the past 3 years, I believe, as well.
Spirit Line.
Spirit Line. Softball.
Mhm.
And we're increasing more sports to get those camps going so we can get that engagement with our community and our kids as well. And swimming, I'm sorry.
Board, members of the board, any other questions? Just some random thoughts that have come up based on comments and things over the years that you hear regarding the athletic program. The first thing I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to come back to salary, You didn't mention anything about proposing a salary for
Not
the
at the
coaches, but
moment.
I'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
And also, I want to talk about what you're doing for a trainer. And I know that the administration is working very hard to get one, but I want to ask you about that because I don't have to tell you, that's of utmost importance because of nothing more than, of course, the well-being of the student, but the liability to the school district as well, especially for visiting teams when they're here and they expect that the district, that the hosting district have that type of coverage. The issue of keys that are issued to coaches, now this is something that comes up, and I'll tell you how it comes up. Members of the community want to use the football field, they want to use the gyms, all three of them. They want access to fields like the one Mr. Lindeman just mentioned. I think you talked about Huber, right? A while ago. Over the years, that's always been a point of contention with members of the community saying, well, how come school employees who have keys, or they lend them to their friends, and then they've got access to the gymnasium, to the fields, especially the football field. And this is probably more of, in all fairness to you, it's probably more of a question for Melissa or Alejandra, as to who gets keys, and are they well advised that and it's by district policy as well, the use of any key, but especially coaches, because people drive by and they see people in the gym with their kids playing, and I don't have to extrapolate. But is there a pretty staunch, persistent rule and reminder to coaches that those keys are for them only? And who does get keys? Head coaches, assistants, and
One
volunteers?
assistant, one assistant coach.
Okay, so there's only, and so I'm sure you guys are well aware of all of those concerns by the public about access to all of these venues,
Yes.
right? Go ahead, Melissa, if you want to say something.
So yes, that's been an issue. So 4 years when I started as the principal at Douglas High School, it was a huge issue with so many people having access to the gym, to the weight room, to the, all the athletic fields. But I know since I've been there, we've been a stickler when it comes to keys. So what has been issued out prior to me taking over as the principal, I can't change that. I know for now, the procedure is that they must sign out for these keys. So they sign basically their life away for these keys so that we know who has them, and to the point to exactly what it says on that key. Every key has a code, and we keep tabs. So if we find a key or someone has a key, we're able to track that key and find out who it belongs to. So with that being said, yes, we can't change the fact that there was people with keys prior, but I know from myself being the principal to now, we've really cut down on the number of keys that are out. And now with the new weight room, I can tell you that not everybody has a key, that we are being very selective as to who has those, so we can better monitor the ins and outs of our buildings, and more importantly, to keep better tabs on our equipment and make sure that they're not getting damaged.
I know
So I
maybe
know
4 or
that
5
we've-
years ago, and thanks for that explanation.
Yes.
4 or 5 years ago, the board brought that up specifically because of complaints from the community about not having access to the football field. And that's when it was brought up that, the coaches are loaning their keys to their friends and they're going in. So anyway, you're on top of that, and that's great. But I do know that at that time, that the district issued a questionnaire to every employee, and they had to be forthcoming about what key that they actually had in their possession. And if they weren't, then, they found out later that they weren't forthcoming, that there was another issue,
Yeah.
right? So thanks for that.
So, and just to clarify, it's not just for athletics, but we have collected keys. We did a whole key inventory from everybody that has keys at our school sites, so that we had to reissue them at the start of the school year. That way we can, know exactly how many keys were assigned to which individual. But like I said, some people are not honest, and when we collected the keys, some of the keys they did not spring forward. And we knew that was going to happen, but we've been trying our best to better keep track of the keys and who has them. And then when individuals leave, we make sure that we get those back, and we sometimes seek assistance from district admin to help assist us with retrieving those keys as well.
Well, I as an employee would feel terrible that if I hadn't been honest when I answered that questionnaire, and then I was seen, say in the Paul Huber Gymnasium, and I had X to it because I had a master or a grandmaster, then there's subsequent consequences for that. So thanks for that. You're on top of it, so that's great. The other question I had, were you going to talk about admission in passes? That's another thing that comes up once in a while about the admission to the school activities and what passes are honored. And then I want you to get to that, but the most important question I have right now is, how many outside of the actual Douglas school students, do you have anybody in homeschooling?
Not at the moment.
At all? Anybody online that's affiliated with the school? You don't have anybody participating in any of that,
Not at
right?
the moment.
Okay. The other thing that's going to come up, it's my understanding in the legislature, is that I want to really be nice about this. Well, let me just say, the charter schools are going to have access by law, and it's being proposed that the district won't have any discretion as to whether they can play or not. If they go to a home district, that's a discussion right now in some of the committees at the legislature. So you need to be prepared for that. And I don't know if we ought to preempt them first and have our own, but even if we did, it would be superseded by the state statute. So you don't have any recommendations on AIA passes, or who gets in with a pass, and how much? And does the staff, I know I'm saying a lot, but I want you to be all encompassing. Does the staff get in free still? And
Yes.
what passes do you honor? Let me just stop there.
So we're waiting on the passes for AIA. There was a issue check for that. That will be here soon.
Go ahead, Alejandra.
Hi, sorry. We do get our district passes. It's just that they're waiting for the membership to be paid, and that's in the process right now. As soon as that gets paid, we will be getting the district passes, but we have two different sites. So it's the AIA district passes, which is all board members, higher administration, and those are the ones that get the district passes. But then we also have the AIA, mainly, which is our coaching staff. So we issue it to head coaches, administration, and then the employees for the athletic department. So that would be mainly for the AIA passes. We also have, well, when I was here, it was already established. We have our district passes, well, Douglas High School passes for athletics only. We have them for sale for student. They go all year to any event, and it's $25. We have it for adults. It's $30. We have a family pass, which is 2 students, 2 adults, and I believe it's $75. And then for family of 5, it's $90. So that is mainly the only ones that we allow. So let's say an outsider brings their AIA passes, we allow that one person with a visitor, and then the ones that we provide from Douglas High School.
What about district employees?
District employees, as of right now, they still go in free. But they do need to show us their school ID. If they don't have a school IDs, well, the ladies don't know that they work here, so then they won't let them come in without no ID.
Were you contemplating some type of an increase in admission?
Yes.
Yes, that was
Maria?
part of her recommendation.
Because that's all part
That
of
is
it.
something that it was mentioned and recommended to me, and we're looking into it. It's not set on stone yet, but we're in the talks about.
Okay, and you're
going
working with
higher.
the administration on that?
Yes.
All right, and then what about a salary proposal? I thought last year that this board's very amenable to taking care of our employees within our means, right? And anytime we can, we're gonna do it. So we would entertain, I mean, if you have a proposal for coaches' salaries and you feel it's justified, if you want to bring a proposal to the administration, let them, of course, filter it through them.
Okay.
And then if they ultimately bring it to the board, we'd be more than happy to consider it. So do you have, I know that your predecessor was discussing that at a meeting one time, and then it never came to fruition,
Yes.
so.
It's on the works. I think our coaches are working really hard to get our kids to be on those states competitions and represent really well to our Douglas community and Douglas High School. I feel having the off season is a lot of time, and it's a lot of effort that it takes not only from the kids but the commitment also from the coaches. So I want to make sure that I also made my efforts to make them be paid well.
Melissa, is that something you're working with her? Okay, and then, let's say for tonight, what are you doing for a trainer?
For what trainer? Oh, EMT. I'm sorry. It was like a combination.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
That's
We have an EMT on site with an ambulance. So we have, I believe it's 2 EMTs and an ambulance on site on the field. So every football home game, we will have those resources that are coming from our fire department.
Okay, and then this is my last one, and then I'm going to revisit the board and see if they have anything else. When you talked about coaches and you talk about equipment and buying equipment for the athletes, do you make an allowance for coaches to buy how many shirts that are representative of the school and anything that that they might wear, the polo shirt or jackets or whatever? How much of a budget do you give them for that personal type of purchase?
It's actually for uniforms. Our booster clubs are really good providing for them to keep those shirts and polos that they are using for their extra, equipment that they want to wear, like, for example, jackets or that kind of stuff. Our booster clubs are really good providing those for our kids because I cannot collect those back. They will keep them.
Or your student auxiliaries, or student activities.
Hi, sorry again.
No, that's what we're here for.
So the only one that we do provide is the athletic polo. I would say that's the only one because it's our uniform. It represents our athletic department. But the majority, I'm going to use, since he's here, Mr. Ochoa, baseball. They run everything through student activity and donations. So those are the kind of shirts that they keep. When it comes to Mrs. Seville here in the back, she runs everything through her booster club. And those are the items that our kids do give. And I know for sure, like, the majority of them do buy extra, and those are the ones that you see everyone wearing. Or, for example, at football, those were bought through student activity, and those are the ones that are hand out. But once again, it's not the M&O or auxiliary, because with M&O and auxiliary, we can only purchase 4 uniforms.
But there should be a basic purchase or provision for coaches through the M&O.
Yeah.
As part of their requisitions if they do it out of their budget, right?
Yeah.
And then the last thing is volunteers. Absolutely, if they're approved by the district,
We also provide them with a polo.
they should also be provided one. And
Yes.
you do that, right? We don't want the volunteers to say they didn't even give me a shirt and
Yes.
had to go out and buy it, right? Okay, go ahead if you want to add any more.
Yes, volunteers will get a shirt. We're doing it by season because unfortunately we didn't get the full amount of shirts that we needed at the beginning of the school year, so I didn't want it to just give to some and not the others, so I'm doing it by season. And it's being provided already for our fall, for our volunteers and coaches.
Members of the board, any afterthoughts? Mr. Smith? No. Mrs. Salchow?
Just one, I know you're probably going stalking again. On the volunteers, okay, and I know that the coaches recommend the volunteers, and it goes to you and to Melissa, and then it comes to us at the board, and with Ms. Samaniego, and then brought to us at the board. Is there ever a problem that you foresee where, because we have some volunteers that I know have a lot of experience, and, like there's a volunteer with football who played collegiate ball and has a lot of skills to offer with that. But do you ever have people who want to volunteer and then there's that uncomfortable conversation of, we already have enough volunteers, or you don't meet the criteria?
I haven't that situation yet.
Mel,
She
okay,
might be
come
able
on
to
up.
answer.
So just like it said, there's sometimes where volunteers will come straight to the district office to request a volunteer form, and the girls are really great to send them back to the school site. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's awesome that we have people wanting to help and volunteer, but the coaches really do have a say as to who their volunteers are because they're going to be part of their coaching staff. So it's somebody that they should know, be able to work with, and know that they have the skill set to be a volunteer coach. So answering your question, yes, we've had some difficult conversations with community members that have requested to volunteer, and like I said, we talk to the coaches, and then the coaches tell us, no, we don't need them, or we have enough volunteers, or at this time they're not needed. Then yes, unfortunately, we do have to have that difficult conversation to let them know that they would not be recommended.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Lindemann, do you have anything else? Mr. Ramos?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No.
All right, is there anything, Melissa, I'm going to address this to you, that you'd like to go to the administration on to have this board change or amend or regarding policy, or other than admission, you're going to discuss that with the administration, and you're going to discuss salary? Is there anything else regarding athletics that the board needs to, that you'd like to see the board do?
No, I mean, I've learned a lot in my last 3 years, that's for sure. Learning more about athletics, how it's run. I think that having Ms. Trinta join my team, it's going very well. She's learning very quickly, which is amazing. She's taking initiative to do things. So just kind of like what you heard the kids talk about, our fields need a little work, well, the availability to use lights, but I mean, we know we gotta ask administration for that. But your support and your visibility. The kids love to see you guys, so we invite you to the games. We look forward to seeing you guys at the games, because that means a lot to them. I tell my teachers and my staff the same thing, is that just like you saw the kids here, and they're amazing, and we do have amazing students at Douglas High School, but now that they've seen your faces and they see you at the game, I know that that's going to mean a lot to them. So we encourage you to please support athletics, be there, and not just for athletes, but our band program, our drama program, any type of extracurricular activity that we have going on. We highly encourage you guys to be there and come visit our school. We have amazing things happening.
Okay, thank you so much. Administration, you want to summarize it?
No, I think it was very an extensive presentation of our athletics program, and so if a concern you had, I hope was answered tonight, especially with our volunteers. I think still up in the air the number of coaches compared to the number of our teams. Overall, I think as a head coach, and we have many head coaches here, and I appreciate that you took the time to be here, you all know the work better than we do, and you know the value of your assistant coaches. And so whether you have 3 teams versus 2 teams with 50 kids versus 30 kids, you couldn't do the job by yourself. And so I think the board does recognize it, and I hope that that message was loud and clear today. If we were ever thinking, or if that is a decision or direction that we will ever take, to consider reducing the amount of paid coaching staff due to the number of teams that are in each sport. Our coaches do put in a lot of hours, and when we do I think Mr. Angel Vidal, when he came, we had a discussion over the salary and the breakdown, the number of hours that they spend compared to the number of the addenda they receive. It's very, very small amount compared to all the work that they do. So I do want to recognize that, and Alejandra, you've been very supportive and knowledgeable over the course of the years. You've been through several ADs, and you're still the one there. So thank you for that. And
well, before you get off of that, let me just quickly comment regarding that one statement you made. You didn't hear anything different from the board regarding the amount of coaches, and you didn't hear any concerns expressed by them that would cause any significant change for you, so you continue as you were. And no, the board hasn't taken any action, so everything's status quo. Mr. Soto. But Soto is Smith in Spanish, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Anyway.
I've heard that.
I'm kidding, Mr. Soto. Go ahead. Do you have anything you want to summarize regarding the budget or the expenditures or
Like I
anything?
said, I explained the different buckets of money and the money that it's allocated to the program. The athletic director knows that they have the ability to move monies around as needed. They're not just specific to that line. And there's always been, like these past years, and I totally understand there's not enough money. We understand that we find ways on how to fund different things that all the programs need. So again, we're still in the same boat and doing the same thing for
But don't
programs.
refer to it as buckets of money, because Tom Horn will,
Now, Mr. Horn.
already disparagingly looks on all public schools. If he says you're talking about buckets of money, he'll get more confused. He'll confuse his staff more than they're already confused. Go ahead. Denise, did you have anything regarding human resources regarding any of this conversation?
No, I just want to reiterate, as Mrs. Samaniego stated, that we appreciate all the hard work the coaches do. It doesn't go unnoticed, and anything you need from us, we are here to help support.
Okay, thanks for a great presentation, really. It was really enlightening, and I think it was long overdue. And we yes, do you have a question, Donna?
I do. So, first of all, just gonna give just a time. I know you want to get out of here. I won't make it too long, because I can. So, way back in the day, I used to be a DEA president, and I was it for 10 years, okay? And I was with the Pettit years prior to that. So that tells you how far back I was and what I was going through. As we traveled through time, we worked very hard to get teachers their raises, that we were frozen for all those years. I was with Bianca Hernandez and Miss Teresa Gallardo, myself, helped bring those teachers up. I know how hard it is to keep that pay going, and I want to thank the board, first of all, for always considering that every year, because that was the biggest struggle we had as teachers. And I appreciate that so much, that's your first thing on your item, and I've always noticed that when I watch the board meetings. But I do want to talk about the coaches. Now, this is not going to help me because I'm gone. So I have coached for over 20 years, 23 years in this district, and never once got a raise as a coach. We tried, and we tried, and we tried. I tried as a DA president. I tried with Mr. Walker. He presented it. It was just put on the backfire, put on the backfire, put on the backfire. I want you to understand, and I know you understand this, our coaches pull more hours in this state than any other. You want to know why? Because we sit on a bus. And we sit on a bus longer sometimes than our competition is. And then we don't get home until real late, and then we got to get up the next morning and come to work. And we don't get to bed until 2 a.m., some of us. As a matter of fact, volleyball just has that story, because they went extra innings because they wanted to win or something. I don't know. So, or matches, okay, I'm sorry. Whatever it is. I just please consider when, and I know you will, please consider those coaches and those raises. It is a struggle to get coaches right now because they don't want to sit on that bus for that entire amount of time. We're not like Tucson coaches. We're not like Phoenix coaches. So please don't compare us to that, because we're on that bus a long, long time. You have a great, I know, I'm just going to say this about my fellow coaches. They're fantastic. They're dedicated. And it's been a pleasure. But please consider them for that raise because of that reason. Doesn't affect me. So thank you so much for your support and always thinking of us first. That's what I always want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
All right, members of the board, if there's nothing else, did you have any questions? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.